had likely been out of alignment since the Nixon administration gave up the ghost on the San Diego freeway. Jack and Karen were stranded on the shoulder, the radiator hissing like a disgruntled cat. "I'm sorry, Karen," Jack said, wiping grease onto his forehead as he peered under the hood. "I thought your uncle took care of this thing." "Uncle Stanley doesn't take care of anything that doesn't have a property of tag on it." Karen laughed. She was sitting on the bumper, looking remarkably unfazed. "Honestly, Jack, this is the most fun I've had all week. Do you know he tried to take me to a lecture on the history of the breakwater yesterday?" Jack looked at her. The moonlight caught her eyes. She was charming, funny, and most importantly, she seemed to really like him. The gay ruse was a double-edged sword. It kept him in the apartment with two beautiful women, but it made moments like this incredibly complicated. Back at the apartment, the atmosphere was far less romantic. Jonna and Chrissy sat at the dining table, the happy birthday cake sitting between them like a sugary tombstone. "He's not coming back, is he?" Jonna said, her voice small. She was wearing her best dress, a floral wrap that she'd been saving for tonight. "He said he'd be back in time for the party," Chrissy whispered. "Maybe he got into an accident. Or maybe he just forgot." "He didn't forget," Jonna said, her anger finally bubbling over. "He saw a pretty face and a $50 bill, and he vanished. That's Jack. He's just a guy. A great cook, though," Chrissy added helpfully. "I'm going to break his leg," Jonna decided. "The one he doesn't use for dancing." When Jack finally stumbled in hours later, he wasn't met with cheers. He was met with the silent treatment, the most lethal weapon in the female arsenal. "Jonna, Chrissy?" Jack asked, his voice echoing in the quiet room. He saw the cake. He saw the cold dinner. He felt like the smallest man in California. He had the $50 in his pocket, but he also had something else. Earlier that night, before the car broke down, he had stopped at a small shop. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small, velvet-lined box. "I know I'm a fink," Jack said to the back of Jeanette's head. "I know I'm despicable, but I had to run an errand. I saw this in a window, and I knew you'd hawked yours for the rent 3 months ago." He placed the box on the table. Jonna slowly turned around. She opened it to find a beautiful cameo almost identical to the one her grandmother had given her. The silence broke. It didn't shatter, it melted. "Oh, Jack," Jonna whispered. "I couldn't waste Roper's money on Karen, could I?" Jack grinned, his classic, lopsided smile. Peace was restored in 201. But downstairs, Stanley Roper was staring at the ceiling, wondering if Tripper was perhaps a bit more normal than he had first suspected. Chapter 4, The Sleepwalker and the Stray. The following week brought a new set of challenges, mostly in the form of a 4-legged ball of fur and a 2-legged blonde wandering the hallways in her sleep. It started with Larry Dallas. Larry was Jack's best friend, a used car salesman whose moral compass was more of a decorative ornament. He had given Jack a puppy to settle a $25 debt. "We can't keep it, Jack," Jonna insisted, though she was currently scratching the puppy behind its ears. "Roper has a strict no pets policy. It's in the lease, page 4, right under no subletting to circus performers. But look at her," Jack pleaded. "Larry was gonna have her put to sleep. He told me a whole story about it. It was tragic. There were violins. Larry tells everyone that," Chrissy said, though she was also cooing at the dog. "He told me that about a 1970 for Gremlin once." The problem of the dog was compounded by Chrissy's sudden return to sleepwalking. Stress from her job as a temporary secretary for a man she called Christopher Columbus, because his hands were always exploring, had triggered her childhood condition. "I saw her," Roper barked the next morning, cornering Jack by the mailboxes, walking around at 3 in the morning in her nightgown. "It's a decent neighborhood. Trip her. If she wants to parade around, tell her to put on a coat." Jack spent the next 48 hours in a state of high alert. He was hiding a whimpering puppy in a laundry basket and trying to prevent a sleeping Chrissy from wandering into the street. The climax came at midnight. Jack was in the kitchen, trying to feed the puppy some warm milk, when he heard the telltale creak of a bedroom door. Chrissy emerged, her eyes glassy and unfocused. She began to hum a church hymn as she headed straight for the front door. "Oh no, not again," Jack hissed. He scooped up the puppy and chased after her. He caught her in the hallway just as she was about to head down the stairs. "Chrissy, back to bed. Shoo!" He managed to guide her back inside, but in the confusion, the puppy escaped the laundry basket. The small dog, sensing freedom, bolted toward the kitchen. Suddenly, a loud knock. "Tripper, I know you're awake. I hear whimpering." Roper's voice boomed from the other side of the door. Jack panicked. He shoved Chrissy toward her room and looked at the puppy. With no other choice, he hid the dog under the dining table just as Roper barged in. "What is that noise?" Roper demanded, sniffing the air. "It smells like dog breath." "That's me," Jack said quickly. I have a cold, a very barky cold. Woof, woof. See?" Roper stared at him. "You're a very strange person, Tripper. But if I find a dog in here, you're out. On the street." The next morning, the puppy was gone. Jack and Jonna searched the apartment in a panic, only for Chrissy to emerge, looking refreshed. "Oh, I found a home for her," Chrissy announced. "I left her on a doorstep where I knew she'd be loved." On top of the morning paper. "Whose doorstep?" Jonna asked, her heart sinking. "The Ropers. It's their anniversary. I thought it would be a nice surprise." Jack buried his face in his hands. "Chrissy, you just gave our landlord the evidence he needs to evict us." But luck, as it often did for Jack Tripper, took a strange turn. Helen Roper, starved for affection and desperate for something to love that didn't grunt at the television, fell head over heels for the puppy. "Oh, Stanley," Helen gushed as they walked into